Alright, so if you're joining for the greenhouse portion, we're getting ready to get started on that, and I'm just kind of getting my stuff together to get back out there. Something I haven't mentioned so far is you should totally consider getting one of these, bolts and bin kind of organizers, these little portal ones. Got this from Harbor Freight for really cheap. I just took all the part numbers, all the bags that's got the part numbers on it, and stuck them in this, and then I can carry this back and forth. So because I'm not building right next to the garage, I don't have to run back and forth, and I don't have to worry about dropping nuts and bolts and stuff or screws in the grass and losing them. So this has actually been extremely helpful, like shockingly helpful. So the last time we worked on the video, I'd already had the foundation kind of dug out and had the base plate put up, and then we started putting up the corner posts. So we're up to the point in the directions where we're about to put on all the top plates. I've already assembled them. I got that finished yesterday. So we're going to start there, and if you want to see any of the progress from the other part, go check out the last video. And at the end of the series, I'm going to try to recap the whole build and show you guys where I had trouble and any sort of suggestions to make it a little easier. And I'll apologize a little bit in advance. Since we actually have a sunny day for a change, it's gonna make the lighting a little funny, and I haven't figured out how to solve that because I'm an amateur photographer, so bear with me. All right, finally ready to actually get to installing the ceiling plate now. Had to go get a ladder because I'm short and it's getting just tall enough to where it's kind of a pain. So short people problems. But anyways, there are one thing to note in this whole process is be very careful about just tightening up everything as you go, because there's some adjustments you have to do, and then there's several occasions where you're going to have to take some bolts back out to add a second piece and then put it back together. So it would be advantageous to kind of read through the directions and know. Some of the bolts and things I tightened down because I needed to leave it overnight in case some winds picked up and stuff. I didn't want it, getting wobbly. But anyways, we're getting ready to try and get this base plate up, the ceiling plate up, and I don't have help today, so we're gonna see how much of this I can get done by myself. All right, not having help on this part really sucks. I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but that aluminum is, well, it's easy to bend for one, and two, balancing it and getting all the pieces together, you really need a second pair of hands, or maybe some clamps. I've always said clamps are a second pair of hands, so maybe I'll go grab some. We're gonna see if the clamps work. Got them up in that corner. Yeah, I'd say the clamps made a world of difference, because I could prop stuff up on it, get stuff in, and then go to the other side. Little word of advice, I would definitely do the front first and then go do the rear, because on the rear, the tolerances to get the bolts through everything, at least for mine, were terrible. So you kind of had to flex the aluminum a little bit to get the holes to line up and then get the bolt through. So just something to consider. We finally got our top plate up, and it looks like we're getting ready to put up all the wall braces. This part's going to be a little bit tricky to catch like the real details on film, so I'm going to show you kind of some stuff that I've gathered from the directions and frankly some other people I've watched try to build these. These have a channel inside them that you will slide a lot of the bolt heads into, which is also how they fasten to both the top plate and the bottom plate. A little trick that somebody else had done, which looks like a great idea, I'm going to try it, is you got to slide several bolts into here, and some of them may go above or below some of these other braces, and so you can see that on the directions. They put some tape around this, and that way the bolts slid down to the tape, and so if you needed some below, you slid them on, put your tape on, slide the rest of them on, and it'll kind of keep them in place for you so that you're not, you know, trying to fish them back around. So I'm going to try that. I think that's going to work pretty well. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. So we're going to take this, fix it in the bottom. The bolts stay roughly where they need to. Get this up here, fix it in the top, and then I can slide them where they need to and keep them from falling all the way to the bottom. So our next step is going to be putting up a whole bunch of these horizontal braces all the way around. It's literally just threading a whole lot of screws. Now the good thing is where we put the tape, that's what these screws actually go to. So the extra screws that you put on the post. So yeah, we're gonna start attaching all these. I'm not gonna film a whole lot of that because it's just boring stuff, but I do want to take you around real quick, show you what we've done so far. All right, we're looking at the left side here. This will be the back. This will be our right side. And then of course the front. All right, so we got all the walls up, and aside from the panels, I think they're pretty much finished. The next step is actually trying to put the gable and stuff on, which I'm going to actually hold off on. The next thing I really need to do is actually get my corner posts installed, the wooden posts, because I don't want to get this with too much weight on the top before I actually get the bottom finished, because we get a lot of wind here and I don't want this thing folding in half. Because I had it kind of out of square when I dug the holes, I've got to expand these holes a little bit and do a little work there, and so that's going to be probably the biggest portion of the rest of the day. You know, hopefully we'll get the posts set in concrete today. So if we get all 4 posts dug and set in concrete, then I'll be extremely happy with how far we've made it today. One little tidbit to note that it says in the directions, sort of, but I kind of messed up and had to redo a little bit, is when you're putting up these horizontal braces, it's pretty obvious if you look in the corners where they connect, which one goes on top and which one goes on the bottom. And if you don't put them on, you know, the right way, or at least leave your screws, then you'll have your post in, and your screws will either be I would say post, that horizontal support. It'll either be above or below the screws when they need to be in a different spot. And so I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so you can see where these overlap. All right, and so in the corners, your holes are actually offset. You'll see it in the front and the rear. And so you need to make sure that if this hole is offset top, that whenever you're threading your screws in, especially in these middle ones, that you leave, you know, if you start on the front, you need to leave one below, and if you start on the back, you need to leave one above. So you just need to pay attention to that, else they won't be straight, and you need these to be, you know, pretty close to level. So I'll show you the back, just you can see what I'm talking about. So on this one, this post is on the bottom, right? And if you come along the same side to the other side, that is on the top. So little lesson learned there. That's the case all the way around. All right, I'm back. Finally. All right, so we've been at it for about 7 hours already today, and I've about used all the energy I got. But we got all 4 corner posts in, and I'll show you kind of where we're at with that. I was kind of going back and forth. I bought 6 posts, 1 for each corner and then 1 for the middle on either side. And I'd been debating on whether or not to put that middle one in. I think structurally it'll be fine without it, but I like the idea of having it for internal use, so to help anchor my benches and stuff off of, my tables. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and put it in, but that means digging 2 more holes, which is not happening today. And I went ahead and dumped in the rest of the sand I've got. So I definitely did not have enough sand. I think I had 15 bags. I'll have to go back and count. That's gonna really depend on your particular foundation setup. I've got kind of a little bit of an unlevel area right here, and so I wanted to use the sand to kind of build it back up some, and then of course level it out before I put the floor in. And I'll probably need another, probably 10 bags. You'll just have to do this, you know, the square footage and the depth math and all that stuff. They tell you how much. I just kind of winged it. I knew it was gonna be 10 by 12. I didn't account for having to fill back in a little bit around the foundation of the greenhouse and kind of on the outside. And then I'm also having to go quite a bit deeper than I originally figured out. So not the end of the world, just something to note. But let me show you what we got going on here. One thing to mention is, you know, I bought 8-foot posts knowing I was going to put about 2 foot in the ground and have, you know, about 6 foot above ground. And I figured once I got them set, I would just cut them to, you know, match the length. And I measured the holes that I dug, but apparently I got either a shorter pole or I didn't measure one of the holes right, because I've got one post that's like 3 inches shorter than the rest of them, which is really unfortunate because I was gonna run a top band around the inside, and I'm gonna have to bring that band down quite a bit lower than I originally planned on because of that, or I'm gonna have to figure out some way to like scab on another piece at the top. That kind of sucks, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. So as you can tell, that one is quite a bit shorter than the rest of them. I didn't realize it until I'd already set it in concrete, and so shame on me, I didn't measure. Again, not the end of the world. Structurally, it'll do what I wanted it to do, but I'll just have to do something a little different on the inside than I was originally planning to do. The last thing I wanted to show you guys. So you could set these posts, like if you were meticulous about marking out your ground and squaring everything off before, it would be probably a little easier to sink these posts before you ever even start. The downside is going to be if you put them in the very corners like I did, you're going to have a hard time getting to some of the bolts, which is why I waited. I think I'm in a good spot. Fingers crossed I didn't shoot myself in the foot putting them in when I did. But in order to keep them level and straight, here's what I did, and it actually worked out really well. So actually I just used bungee cords to kind of pin it. So I knew I was going to have it flush against at least one side here, which is this brace. I guess you probably can't see that, this brace. And so I put my level on here and I leveled it, you know, both directions. And then I just bungee corded it in place, double checked the level, and then I set my concrete. So this actually worked really well. And if you're using the quick setting concrete, you can do this, and by the time you get to the next one, you know, your first one's set up. So at least enough to be able to take this off. These are probably already to a point where I can take it off, but I don't need to do anymore, so I don't need those straps, so we're just gonna leave it. That's all I've got left. I have got to do some cleanup, and then I'm gonna go rest because the last couple of days has been non-stop, you know, between this and of course my regular job, which I took a vacation day today to take advantage of this really nice day. It's an unusually warm day. It's like in the 60s, I think, today. And we're at the beginning of February. So I wanted to take advantage of the warm day, try to get this up to a point where hopefully we'll have some stuff in here before long. But anyways, if you enjoyed this, I appreciate you tuning in this long, and hopefully you'll see you again next time. You have a good day. Thanks.